What's up, YouTube? And welcome back to the Great League. Today we're going to be taking a look at Fury Cutter METANG and Fly Galarian Moltres. Now, both these Pokemon got buffed this season with brand new moves to their move pool, and while METANG doesn't look great in the Sims, it actually performed really well for me. This thing is really bulky, and to be honest, even though the Shadow was recommended, I found that the non-Shadow worked really well. I am unfortunately running it with Gyro Ball. I do not have a return METANG. That said, Gyro Ball actually came in clutch in a couple matchups. I'm not sure if they're going to be showcased in this video, but there were matchups where my charge moves would have been completely resisted, but Gyro Ball was not. So we're also, look at Fly Moltres, look at the Sims. This thing is disgusting in the one shield scenario. Today we use it as a safe swap, and then Pangoro in the back to sweep the end game, making a great core with METANG. So without further ado, let's hop into some battles. Okay, into the first match, we've got METANG into Tentacruel. This is a good matchup because either Poison Sting or Acid or Poison Jab are all double resisted here. And we have super effective Psyshocks that come every 10 turns. They do connect with a Scald, and then they make a nice catch onto their Dunsparce when I throw the Psyshock. However, I can now align my Pangoro here, and I know one charge move is not going to be enough to KO, which is why I'm just going for a Night Slash right away. I want this chip damage, and I want the potential at a boost. Unfortunately, we do not get the boost, and my opponent, I believe, is one rollout away from back-to-back charge moves. So I'm going to throw one more Karate Chop, then connect with the Night Slash to pick up the knockout, unless my opponent commits a shield. They let it go, and then we get the boost. So now we're going to overfarm, go for the Night Slash before my opponent is able to make it to another Scald. This will connect my... Oh, we get the boost again, and we make it to another Night Slash. Pangoro is going absolutely crazy in this game already. We grab a shield from the opponent, and these Karate Chops are doing more damage than the Poison Stings. We get to another Night Slash. Night Slash picks up the knockout on the Tentacruel. My opponent has had enough of Pangoro shenanigans, so they just resign the match. Into the next match, terrible lead. We've got METANG into Corviknight. I'm going to safe switch into my Moltres because this is where Sand Attack is resisted and all of their charge moves are only neutral, or besides Payback, which is resisted. I can let that go, and unfortunately my charge moves are resisted, and I was hoping my opponent would just swap out of this matchup to where my charge moves are neutral, but they do not. I'm going to connect with a Fly right before they get to the next charge move, and then I'm going to shield because I can potentially Sucker Punch farm them down before they're even able to get to another charge move. It's going to be close, but we just barely get it, which is absolutely huge because now we come out loaded with energy. They have Golisopod in the back, so kind of strange that they ended up letting that go or giving me switch. I'm able to make it to a Fly plus a Brave Bird here. My opponent will have to commit both shields, and they do. And now we're in a bit of a tricky situation because Bug is neutral on METANG, super effective on the Psychic, and resisted on the Steel. So it ends up being neutral. And then Pangoro, I don't have any fast move pressure, so I'd be forced to go for Night Slash, and they're not quite in Night Slash range. They're at least in 2 Night Slash range. So I'm forced to come in with my METANG. METANG is able to connect with a Psyshock, and at this point, I think my Pangoro with a shield can probably sweep this endgame. So I let it go. I instantly pivot into my Pangoro. They've got a Marowak in the back. I'm going to full send the close combat. I need to do huge damage with this move. It doesn't quite knock out, but with that Karate Chop going through, I know that one more Karate Chop will pick up the knockout and their next Mud Slap will not register, but no, they actually live on 1 HP, but that allows me to get to a Night Slash here against the Golisopod, and even if they had a charge move, we would win CMP, so Pangoro once again sweeping in the endgame. METANG into Dunsparce, another Dunsparce. Maybe people were on the hunt for all the bugs today. But this is a fairly neutral matchup, believe it or not, because METANG is very bulky. It's got a very solid stat product, especially in the Great League. So we're going to overfarm a little bit here. Now going to connect with a Psyshock. We do have a pacing advantage in this matchup, so we can actually connect with 2 Psyshocks before my opponent gets the 2 drill runs. However, why would I do that when I could catch a double resisted drill run onto my Moltres and then they pivot out, which is huge for me. Of course, Bug Bite is neutral here and they're doing massive damage with it, just as much damage as our Sucker Punches are doing, but I can connect with a Fly. I built up to the Brave Bird like I was going to full send, and they end up calling my bait, which is a little bit unfortunate. However, Fortress's charge moves are so expensive that I know I can just shield once, get the full Sucker Punch farm down, and now I have Switch, so I can align my Pangoro against the Dunsparce in the back. They have an Azumarill in the back, so I'm going to connect with a Fly and then go for the Brave Bird here, but I end up getting KO'd by that bubble, and all that energy is wasted. I am now going to go for a Psyshock right before my opponent is able to get to a charge move. That'll do some decent chip, but my opponent still has 2 shields. So I really have to trust in Pangoro, and I almost need a boost in this matchup. They end up going for a play rough, and METANG holds on from that HP, which is kind of crazy. I'm able to grab a shield from my opponent, and now I can come in with Pangoro. I have to overfarm here because I know I need to come out loaded with energy, and I can't let them get to another charge move here. So I am going to go for the Night Slash right before they make it to the next charge move. If they shield this, I'm at back-to-back, so they know they can't. In comes the Azumarill. They do throw their energy. I'm over-farming here because I basically need to fish for a Night Slash boost and then go for a close combat. I'm nearly at 3 Night Slashes, so here comes a first Night Slash. They do let that go correctly, but now here comes a second, and I'm only 1 more Karate Chop away from a third. So even though my opponent had a Fairy type on Pangoro, Pangoro is actually going to pick up the knockout with the Night Slash, and we're able to take that win. I know I said this was a METANG and MOLTRES showcase, but I guess Pangoro kind of went off in these games. Terrible lead in the next match. What am I going to do here? I'm going to take the resisted quick attacks and then go for a Scorching Sands catch onto my Moltres. I was unsuccessful, but my opponent ends up throwing energy anyways. Of course, this will just be the Fire Punch, but they're actually going to stay in this matchup, and they're going to connect with another Fire Punch. So maybe they don't have a fantastic answer to Moltres in the back, but I can live 2 Fire Punches, and now I'm going to full send the Brave Bird on the CMP tie with the 3rd Fire Punch. And from this range, it is going to grab a shield. So at this point, Moltres has done its job. They will be energy dry when I come in, and that Fire Punch does KO because I lowered my defense. Now I can align my Pangoro onto this Diggersby, and my opponent ends up safe switching into a Jellicent, which is definitely not an answer to a Pangoro up energy. I know 1 Slash will not KO, 1 Surf will not KO, so I will let this go, and their hexes are resisted here, so they have no ability to farm down. I'm now going to overfarm here, going for the Night Slash. This probably will leave them in the deep red, and it does. They live on 1 HP, which is unfortunate, but now I am going to be committing that shield. We don't quite know what is in the back just yet, and I need an ability to pick up the knockout on the Diggersby here. I'm going to overfarm as much as I can, going for the close combat on the CMP tie with my opponent's Fire Punch. They let it go. What's in the back? It's a Corsola. Now this could get tricky. Night Slash is super effective damage, but my opponent lets it go, and that is huge because now all I have to do is make it to 3 potentially Psyshocks before they make it to 2 moves, and they let that one go knowing that, but I'm already at 2 more Psyshocks. The pacing on Fury Cutter is just absolutely insane, and even though it's resisted here, I've put them in Psyshock range with these Fury Cutters, and METANG is spamming out at an absolutely crazy rate that we pick up the knockout on the Corsola before they're able to make it to back-to-back charge moves. METANG into Charizard. Wow, it does not get worse than this. Where do we go from here? We are going to safe switch into our Moltres, and because my opponent is on Ember, they can actually outpace me here, but instead they're going to go for a catch onto their Dragalge in the back. Now I assume this Dragalge is going to be on Acid, and they are actually going to let me get to a Fly. They could have thrown the Aqua Tail there before I got there to pick up the knockout, but maybe they weren't convinced that it would pick up the knockout, so they actually just let that go. I'm now able to Sucker Punch, farm down the Charizard into range where I can Karate Chop farm it down. They do go for a Dragon Claw, and now they're able to get to a Blast Burn because I got 1 turn lag on Bring In, which is pretty unfortunate, but I will commit both shields because I don't know what's in the back, and it is a Dusclops. Now it's very good that I end up saving that shield and not trusting the 1 turn lag to call this game for me. Because now Dusclops, it has resisted hexes, and it can only go for non-stab ice punches, and it looks like it's going to take at least 2 of those to pick up the knockout, and it's going to be close. I'm already at the back-to-back moves, so I'm going to connect with a Night Slash, and now all I need to do is grab that final shield with my METANG, and I have a Night Slash banked. on my Pangoro. I just need to grab that final shield, put them in range for that Night Slash, which I think they already are at this point, and I know I can survive 2 Shadow Punches, so I let it go. Now here comes the Psy Shock. My opponent has a decision to make. Do they let this go, or do they shield it up? And my opponent shields, but I banked a charge move, so we have the Night Slash. This will connect on the Dusclops, and from this range, Dusclops is going to go down, and we're able to take the win. Okay, METANG into Marowak. Another terrible lead, but we have 2 dark types in the back, so we're going to save switch into our Moltres here. And Moltres is met with a Shadow Claw Golisopod, which is definitely not an answer to Moltres here. They are going to shield up the fly, and guess what, Golisopod? I could live a charge move here, but I'm going to grab that second shield from you before I go down. So I'm going to overfarm here, going for the fly. I end up playing to a CMP tie that I do not win, but that's okay. I can live this charge move because they're on Aqua Jet. Had they been on Fury Cutter, I would have been KO'd. But because my opponent is still on the wrong moveset, they end up letting that go, letting me flip switch, and now I can align my Pangoro against this Marowak, and we should be in a pretty good situation. Of course, Pangoro is very glassy, so even these Bone Clubs are going to do some pretty decent chip, but I know I can live 1. Of course, they are the Shadow, so it is slightly boosted, but here comes a Night Slash already, the lightning pacing on Pangoro coming in clutch in this matchup, and they let it go. That picks up the knockout. They have a Moltres in the back, so I'm going to overfarm here very significantly, going for the back-to-back close combats, and I'm going to throw this charge move and then instantly pivot into my METANG. Never mind, they CMP tied me, understanding where my energy was at so that I couldn't do that, but now I'm going to bank that energy because I need to put them in close combat range and they're not quite there. This also forces my opponent to throw energy, and I would be able to get to a Gyro Ball, and these Fury Cutters are neutral damage, so after seeing the fly damage, my opponent just resigned to the match and we're able to take that win. METANG into Golisopod. Now Golisopod does have neutral damage here unless they're on Shadow Claw, so this one is also still on Shadow Claw, which means it is super effective damage. However, that means we can get an extra Fury Cutter in before we throw the Psy Shock, which is nice, getting just a little bit of energy here that we wouldn't normally get. And now once that connects, I'm going to pivot into my Moltres, and they respond with a Belly Bolt. Now obviously Belly Bolt completely walls our charge move set, however, their Sucker Punches are resisted here. They do connect with the Parabolic Charge. Looks like I'm not quite going to be able to get to back-to-back flies, so I will just settle for the Brave Bird. Their defense is raised, so I'm just going to put them deep into the red, but we have a shield advantage, and Pangoro double resist the Sucker Punch. I am going to shield this up to get an energy lead on my Pangoro, and I did get 1 turn lag, so that was not fixed this season. Here comes another charge move from the opponent's Golisopod. I could have let that go just because their Shadow Claws are resisted here as opposed to neutral if they were running Fury Cutter. But now I'm at the back-to-back Night Slashes. It isn't quite enough to KO, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw 1 more Karate Chop, catch onto my METANG, and they actually didn't undercharge that, but they were able to get 1 extra Shadow Claw because it wasn't enough to KO. Can we get the Karate Chop farm down? We can. That is absolutely huge, and they have their own METANG in the back. I just have to watch for a catch. I'm already nearly at 3 Night Slashes here, so they let the first one go. Watching for that catch, overfarming past back-to-back, and watching for the catch 1 more time. I see the Fury Cutter go through, so I click the Night Slash. This will be enough to KO the METANG, and it is just that low HP Belly Bolt in the back, so we are able to take the win. Into the next match, we have Greninja on the lead. This normally would have been a terrible matchup for Metal Claw METANG last season, but we're going to connect with so many super effective Fury Cutters and then catch the super effective Night Slash onto our Moltres where it is resisted. Of course, my opponent does have a response to a Dark type in the back with their Shadow Ninetales, their Shadow Alolan Ninetales. They are going to throw their energy right away, which is fine because I know their energy is completely resisted here, and we were able to desync the timers quite a bit. And yes, these Fury Cutters are resisted, but all I have to do is connect with 1 Gyro Ball because Gyro Ball is double super effective in this matchup. So I'm going to overfarm pretty significantly here, going for the Gyro Ball. As soon as I get to 100 energy, this will pick up the knockout on the Ninetales. And what are they going to do? They're going to come back in with their Greninja. So I'm going to do the exact same thing, throwing so many super effective Fury Cutters and then catching the Night Slash where it is double resisted on the Pangoro. And they have a Drapion in the back. Now Drapion is a little bit awkward because they have a pacing advantage here because Night Slash is resisted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to overfarm pretty significantly, play to the CMP tie on their second Night Slash, and if my opponent isn't willing to call this bait, they will have to commit a shield, and that's exactly what they do. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to overfarm just a little bit, and I'm going to throw one before they get to their next Aqua Tail. That way I can reset this debuff and come in with my Metang. I also have a charge move loaded on my Metang, so I'm going to throw the charge move. Psyshock would be resisted, so I have to go for the Gyro Ball here. I threw one Fury Cutter, picked up the knockout with that, and the Greninja knows they no longer have a chance, so they just resign the match. Metang into Toxapex. This is a fantastic lead for the Metang because Poison Jab is double resisted and Psyshock is super effective. They safe switch into a hard answer of Gastrodon. Trainer, of course I have an answer to Gastrodon when I have a Mud Slap weakness on the lead. So they just resign the match, able to take that win. And this is the matchup that I was talking about where it was good that I had Gyro Ball and not Return. Return would be double resisted here. Gyro Ball is neutral because it's super effective on Rock and resisted on Steel. So I'm able to connect with that, and this Metal Sound Lairon is actually going to pivot out with all that energy and safe switch into a Drifblim. Now this is an awkward matchup because Icy Wind is super effective damage, so I will actually shield that up, and now I'm going to commit to the full Sucker Punch farm down. The unfortunate thing here is that my charge moves are completely walled. So by over farming, that actually forces my opponent to throw, and they end up going for a Rock Slide. If you're going to run Lairon, run the Rock Tomb. It's just way better. But now I can come back with my Metang. I know everything's resisted here, which is why I'm not coming in with my Fighter, which seems weird because double super effective Karate Chops, but all the charge moves, Body Slam, Rock Slide, Metal Sound are resisted here, so I am just going to come in here, pick up the knockout. In comes the Toxapex, and my opponent, they're not over farming because they have no energy, but now I can connect with a Psyshock. This is awkward here because obviously Psyshock is super effective, but one doesn't KO, and Pangoro does not have a good matchup here. So I really need to start grabbing shield for my opponent because I have no ability to farm down. So I'm going to connect with another Psyshock after connecting with the first, and now I'm going to pivot after banking another Psyshock. This will hopefully be able to force a shield or pick up the knockout later in the matchup. All I have to do is make 2 back-to-back Night Slashes. Can we get there? No. One more Poison Jab will be enough to KO. But my opponent shields that, and now I have a Psyshock loaded. We win CMP against the Toxapex, and Psyshock is super effective damage, and it picks up the knockout. So we're able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got Metang into Drapion. Now this is a pretty tough lead. Obviously, we have neutral fast moves, whereas my opponent has resisted fast moves, but they have super effective Shadow Crunch. So I'm going to catch that onto my Galarian Moltres. My opponent then pivots out into a Bastiodon, and this is about as bad as it gets. This is not what we wanted to lure out with our Moltres because our charge moves are double resisted here, single resisted on Steel and single resisted on Rock. I am able to get to 2 charge moves, which is nice because that means I can at least do some OK chip and actually put them in the yellow. So Moltres doing a decent job here. But now I see a potential win con. I'm going to come in with my Pangoro, and I can live a Flamethrower here. So could Metang because Metang's bulky, but I would rather not take that super effective damage when I can get a huge energy lead. My opponent then switches into their Drapion. I'm going to overfarm here, playing to the CMP tie with their Aqua Tail with a close combat. Will my opponent call the bait? They do call the bait, and unfortunately they're going to go down for that. It is a Marowak in the back, and unfortunately this is going to be a really tough game because our Pangoro is already low, and our Metang takes super effective damage from this Mud Slap here. They do also get to these Bone Clubs relatively quickly, but we have a slight pacing advantage, and we had an energy lead to start. So I am able to connect with a second Psyshock. They shielded the first. They still have a shield, so I kind of need to grab that final shield from my opponent before I can safe switch into my Pangoro. So I'm going to overfarm here. I'm 1 away from the Night Slash, I believe, on my Pangoro. So I grab that shield, 1 more Night Slash, 1 more Karate Chop and a Night Slash. Able to connect on the Marowak. And now it's a Bastiodon in the back, and we get the boost, so we were able to Karate Chop farm them down, but we also get to another Night Slash, and somehow we were able to take that win. But yeah, that is regular Metang with Gyro Ball and Fly Galarian Moltres. Now, I know the first few matches didn't seem like a great showcase for those two Pokemon specifically because Pangoro was going absolutely off in these games, which might be a good thing to note later on in the season that Pangoro is potentially really strong into this meta. We'll see how the bugs do. But I honestly, a lot of people have been saying Metang is overrated, but in my personal opinion, I mean, I have experience playing Metang. You've potentially seen it on this channel before if you've been following for a while, so maybe that has something to do with it, but I thought the counts were amazing. I thought its bulk was amazing. I think the core between Moltres and Metang are fantastic, and Moltres in the ones in neutral matchups is also amazing. Of course, using it as a safe swap is not great when you're on double flying movesets and people are hunting bugs with steel and rock, so of course, not the best showcase for it there, but I think overall a very strong team. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me from this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, peace.